Hollywood, California. With me, you know him as the czar of the virtual background, the one and only Pro GK Academy, Omar Zini. Joining us, UCLA goalkeeper coach, Angel City co-owner, World Cup champion. Geez, I don't know what else to add to your title near her, Saskia. Most opinionated person in the world, the one and only Saskia Weber. And joining us with an extensive collection of jerseys in the background that honestly make me go, wow, I haven't accomplished anything in my coaching career, is the one and only U.S. women's national team goalkeeper coach, Philip Poole. Philip, thanks for joining us this lovely morning or afternoon, whatever it is.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. And by the way, I just rented those jerseys for today. They're a good look for people to see.
First off, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. It's awesome. And to be a part of such a historic crew and with, you know, welcome to the pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the people that are jogging next to you, and it's like, that's a fun little position to walk into, right? They're okay.
That's solid.
They're halfway decent. As Saskia said when she saw the Ashlyn Harris viral clip from a couple weeks ago, she's like, "Oh, do you think I can get that girl for my team?" Like,
well, it was such a grainy video. It like you said, it was like, you know, from the upper deck, somebody like took it. It was all like fuzzy, and I was like, "Dude, who's that?" I was like, "Oh, good Lord!" I was like, it's true. I really did say that.
Oh my gosh, we had a lot of fun with that with Lloyd Yaxley the other day. No, first off, Philip, honestly, it's a huge honor for us, to be honest with you. You've been involved with U.S. Soccer for years. I think, you know, finally getting that, you know, full-time position as the goalkeeper coach. I know that you'd been working with the women's national team, you know, extensively throughout the last years at all the different age groups. You know, I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal, you know, the amount of work that you've been putting into the game. And kind of before we go into today's topic, which is kind of building your coaching network. And this is honestly a topic that, Philip, you know, we had a conversation for a while, a couple weeks ago, about that it's sorely needed, because there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of misconceptions. For maybe some of the people out there who might not be familiar with your kind of path, you know, kind of explain kind of your role with U.S. Soccer and how you've kind of come to get this goalkeeper coach position.
Yeah, so I think it goes hand in hand with today, right? So I've managed to somehow work at every level within US Soccer, like you said, from my U14s all the way up to Jill's team, obviously now with Like Go. And I've been on our coaching education staff. I've been on our scouting staff. I've been on our talent ID staff. So for me, I think part of it is, you know, getting all these opportunities. But I think the other thing for me, Michael, is growing up and watching. Obviously, I'm from England originally. I'm almost a citizen of this great country. I should be a citizen in the next 5 or 6 weeks here, so I'm excited about that. But growing up in England, you know, you idolize the national team, you idolize World Cups and what they stand for. And, you know, when someone says, "Hey, do you want the chance to work with our youth national team?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll walk there for that chance if you want," you know. And then you find out you get paid for it. It blows you away. So for me, is that all these opportunities, all of these just prestigious chances I've had to work with different coaches, different goalkeepers, different departments. It's been wonderful, and I think you take something from each of them. You take the relationships from each of them, and it just kind of snowballs from there. So for me, it's been unbelievable, and it's very humbling. It's very prestigious. It's very it's eye-opening at times. So for me, it's been wonderful to see not just one side of it, but every side of what we do, especially on the women's side.
Yeah, you know, and I mean, we've discussed that on the show here, and I know Omar and Saskia will attest for this as well too. You know, how important it is to just get involved, you know, and we'll talk about that in the topic right now, just getting involved. And, you know, not Omar, I think you learned this, you know, early on from your faux pas that we discussed prior to getting on the air, about how important it is to just get in the environment and just kind of prove yourself in the environment, and let your work do the speaking, rather than you know, coming in and expecting to be at the top of the game.
Yeah, I think, I mean, playing the position and coaching it are two different things. And I think that's why a lot of players will transition into coaching, because they realize that it's somewhat similar, but at the same time, it's completely different. So you almost get to apply your knowledge and your skill into something completely new. and stay close to the game. So early on, I felt the same thing where I wanted to do that. And obviously you play at a certain level and you think that you know everything, and you think that your way is the best way, and you want to make a huge splash on the scene and let everybody know who you are. And then once you get there, you start meeting all these, people like Phil, like Saskia, people, Mike, you as well. I'm talking about people who have had these like pedigrees. And
you do not need to put me in that category whatsoever. I found some pictures that
out of
will
respect,
prove that
out of
I should be
respect.
in that.
No, but then you meet, you meet these people, and Saskia, for example, we have her on the show, and sometimes she admits to certain things that she doesn't know, and
Absolutely.
you don't see it as like a negative thing, or I don't see it as a negative thing as a young coach. I see it as, wow, somebody who is that high up in the level and has played at World Cups, Olympics, and all that. They're willing to concede that they don't know certain things. So as a young coach, that's important, because I'm like, lead by example, and now I understand that I shouldn't just walk into every room thinking that I know more than everybody else. Come in, stay quiet, and you actually learn a lot more by coming in and not just showing respect, but asking people about their philosophies and what what their paths have looked like, what their lessons have looked like. And I think that's super important.
Yeah, Saskia, we were speaking about the fact that you'd taken a little bit of time away from the game before stepping back into the coaching world. Do you feel that was healthy for you in order to kind of come back with a different mindset or a different point of view of the game?
I think it was good for me personally. I was never detached in a sense from the game. I mean, I watched. I was always there, involved, and in a sense from like an outside perspective. But it was good for me, healthy. It was time for me to just take a pause and just see the world, do the things I wanted to do, and you find your way back. But you find that I didn't know. I had last time I had coached was for Soccer Plus camps and at NC State for like a hot second, and it was a long time after I had retired. And so coming back, you have to have humility, and the game changes, and I have to change with it, and I have to learn from it, and I have to take from all these amazing coaches that I get to be with every day and talk to and stuff. And you have to admit when you don't know something, and be willing to learn. Like I even told you that story where you came to one of the spring games at UCLA, and I had I was putting together their warm up, and part of me was like I had nervousness as well, which people don't understand. I wanted to make sure everything was on point. I was hitting the right things, and I'm coming after a great coach, Jenny, and I'm sitting here going but then I realized that I have to kind of take a pause, breathe, learn as much as I can learn on the from everybody else, and then implement it with my style and my thought process, and really put into my coaching what I see things differently. Yes, very opinionated, but I never realized as a player how technical I was, and how I see things that way.
No. And I think this is phenomenal right here. And this is exactly, Philip, I think where the direction that you kind of wanted to go with this topic right here. So I think we're going to start diving into the topic. And as I mentioned, it's going to be about building your coaching network and ways to help young coaches when they're starting their coaching journey, kind of the do's and don'ts, all that sort of thing. So maybe, Philip, for maybe some of the parents out there, young goalkeepers that don't know what we're referring to when we're talking about a coaching network, what do we mean by that?
I think that was a perfect segue, right? I think
he's good at that.
The collective knowledge, right, of just being around like-minded people, sharing ideas, getting thoughts, getting better. I look at it as sometimes you don't really notice that you're networking, right? You don't set out to network. You like this person, you respect her because she's great, you like what he did because his session was good. You don't like what she did, so you ask her, hey, what were your thoughts? And you don't realize you're building a network, but it's just a collection of good people, good ideas, some knowledge sharing. And, through it comes these long-lasting relationships where, we have a small goalkeeper community. And I think that I'm sure it's similar in other sports. I don't know the ins and outs, but I should imagine, catchers are the same way in baseball. I should imagine the guys that kick the extra points in football, their coach, it's just that the tighter that network is, and it seems like everyone's got a connection to everyone. So that networking is just a collection of good people, good ideas. And I'd say that, most good people are in some sort of network, right? Our little union, as we like to call it.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a really good point in regards to the fact is that when good networking means you don't even realize that you're networking, and that's regardless whether it's goalkeeper network or some sort of other type of business, insurance network, whatever, and Omar, I know that's one thing we kind of discussed kind of early on in your career in regards to not forcing it, but rather just letting people come to you and then you engage the conversation and not trying to just prove. And I'm not saying that you did this, but not trying to prove that you know more than they do.
No, definitely. I think everybody through a maturation process goes through those moments where they have to flush out a lot of the ego. And I think I had to do that early on where, as you know, Mike, you saw me, I was trying to prove to everybody, not just my peers, but older coaches, that I knew what I was doing and I was this great coach. And then finally you get to a point where like people don't like those kind of people. Like you don't really enjoy those people who aren't considered or aren't considering, other people's opinions as potentially better opinions than their own. So I feel like I had to learn that at a young age as a young coach of like, look, my opinions are my opinions, but at the same time, maybe somebody gives me something that allows me to evolve and level up in that field or in that focus. So that's what I did. I kind of dropped the ego not from the beginning, probably like a year or two in, and then finally realized that like, just be nice to people. You're going to see these people at the convention. You're going to see them at MLS stuff. You're going to see them USL games all around. So the goalkeeping community is so small. So you want to make sure that you come in with the right intentions. And for me, at least, my intention has always been now to just kind of go in with the idea that the person I'm speaking to knows more than me. And I really want to try and, get as much information from them as I can.
Yeah. I will. Go ahead, Sally.
I totally agree. I mean, I'm sitting here and Lloyd from Orlando Pride just emailed me. Like, email me with some training clips and stuff like that. And I had no problem whatsoever to ask. He's
It's
training.
Popular, huh?
Well, he's training, Ashland Harris, training some of the best goalkeepers in the world. And so, here I am training, like, although meteoric, going from privates to club to UCLA, like training some of the upcoming best goalkeepers in the country as well. And I, humbled myself and I had no problem asking him. I'd love to see some clips. I'd love to see, what you're doing and everything, because, it is our community, is our union. And the minute that you are too arrogant, or narcissistic to see that and to open your mind up and ask for like help or talk to people, you're not going to succeed in this. You're not.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to share this right now before we kind of take this back to Philip here. Philip, I'll be honest. When I first met Saskia, I was very intimidated. I really was. I was very nervous to meet her.
That was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. But the thing about you, Saskia, is that you, despite the fact that you carry yourself as a big personality and opinionated and all that sort of stuff, is that you're so intelligent and yet you're so humble about your accomplishments that within a few minutes of talking to you, you put people at ease. You've got just that it factor. And I don't think it's a meteoric rise. I think the game needs you. And I think that there's a reason you're at the position that you're at, whether it's with NWSL now and with UCLA and everything like that, is because, you bring a lot to the table, to the game. And with that, Philip, I kind of want to ask you, what are some of the resources that you need to look to mine from your coaching network?
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of them, right? I think for me, the idea exchange sort of is where it's at. Just like Saskia says, right? You get with a couple of people that you like and respect, and what do you think about this? Have you got any ideas on this? Or my crew are struggling a little bit with this. Give me your thoughts. And I think when you open up to that and you're pretty transparent with your network or even people outside of your network, like there's really no secrets, right? Like, and here's maybe a little bit how I look at myself is I don't know any more or less than you or anyone else, is that I know what I know and I know what I think. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, hey, I'm certainly not the Bible of goalkeeping. There's more ways to do this than A, B, or C. I think my job, I look at it as my job is to help you improve and help you get to where you want to get to. So I look at that little network and say, hey, I need some people that I can bounce stuff off. I'm having a tough time with this, or she's just not seeing it the way I feel she should. What's your thoughts? Have you seen this before? So for me, the idea exchange is important. And I think within that, there's probably another 8 or 9 different things for me that help that network. But within that group, I get people that have played the game at the highest level that can really hone in from a player's standpoint. I got people that I see working every day out on fields doing sessions where I'm like, you know, she knows what she's doing. She can help me. And you get a variety of ages, abilities, levels they work at. And I feel you get a nice blend of people that can really help you with some of those ideas, some of those thoughts. And like Saskia says, for me, sometimes I've got 2 or 3 people I trust implicitly that say, hey, I'm going to send you some clips. Can you tell me what you think? You know, like really intimate, in-session type clips where, you know, you kind of put your best and worst out there. And I think that's part of it, you know? So, yeah, I think the idea exchange is one. I think, you know, it's an avenue for new opportunities, twists in your career, jobs that open up. It's a way to reassess where you are in terms of your qualifications, how you stack up against other people. I think it pushes you creatively if you get the right network and the right people. You know, and the other part is sometimes you get around the right kind of people and it gives you a shot and a little boost. You know, your confidence grows a little bit. You're like, hey, I see Paul Rogers on TV every week, and I get into his sessions. I'm like, you know, I feel the same way he does, and we talk the same language. And you know, you get around certain people, and you get a little boost yourself. You know, look, there's the long-lasting relationships. There's the support from different people. You know, I think there's so many aspects to a network. I could talk about it for hours and hours, but again, the best part is when you don't look at that as a network, you look at it as, hey, these are my go-to people.
Omar,
yeah, we were just talking about Juan at UCLA who took the job, and you know, he had come up to me after practice, after women's practice. The men were getting ready to practice. He said, I got your number. I'd really love to come out and watch your sessions and like bounce some ideas off you and so on and so forth. And I was like nervous, but I was also like, absolutely, but can I come to your sessions too? Like, I'd love to watch yours, you know, and see what you're doing with the men. And you know, and don't just come watch my session, join my session, you know, like, let's do it together. And you know, and if you'll have me, I'd love to give you any feedback on the men that you want from my perspective. But it's humbling yourself and doing that. Like right now I'm having an issue. I'm trying to figure out how to tweak something with one of my keepers, and I'm struggling with it. And when I get off air, I'll probably ask for some help with it, because like I'm hitting a wall. But you know, that's what your network, and that's what this is about. I don't know everything. Absolutely not.
Well, you know, that's a very, very, completely, what was I going to say, subconscious way to tell Philip to help you with this little tweak. So unless you want Omar to do it, he'll break it down, but it'll be 45 minutes.
I was going to ask you, Mike. Why are you just negating yourself from that?
Okay. Well, look, I'm trying to be polite to everybody on the panel here. Omar, I know that it was a change in your point of view and attitude. And I think that one mistake that I made personally, you know, at the beginning of my career is that when I was speaking to somebody, there was a sense of desperation because it seemed like I wanted something from them rather than just trying to connect with that person and let the conversation go where it goes. And Omar, I think that's something that you learned early on, and you recognized when people were looking at you in a certain manner, you know, and you're like, okay, I need to pivot how I approach these people.
Yeah, no, I definitely still feel that way sometimes where, I mean, even for, you know, parents or I have young kids who come and watch the sessions because they're the next session up. And sometimes I don't get nervous, but sometimes I'm like, okay, what do they think about that progression? What does the parent think about this? Okay, a guy who came to take notes on my session, what is he thinking about this? So I think there's always going to be that innate, for me at least, that innate kind of ability to like be uneasy at times because of, you know, people around you. But then like you said, Mike, just like shifting that perspective of see them as peers and see them as people who can help you and, you know, give you good feedback versus that intimidation factor of I'm speaking to Philip Poole and I don't know what he's going to think of what I'm saying. And I think that's what makes the goalkeeping community so special.
The only person ever to utter those words, by the way, that's never been spoken out of anyone's mouth. First person ever.
Well, you know, I think again, but it's a testament, you know, to the experiences that you've had and how much, you know, myself and other people, you know, will respect someone in your position where we do kind of get a little timid, where if you are watching our session or we do ask for that critique that you might, you know, rip our session apart. And I don't think people would do that, but there are some people I know for a fact, you know, Paul Rogers, if I asked him, I don't know what I could get from him, but he'd probably rip my session apart and be like, you did this wrong. But if you flip the perspective of like, he's trying to tell me what I did wrong to, wow, he's imparting all this wisdom and all this knowledge from his own experiences because he made those same mistakes. That shift of perspective really gives you a different mentality. And I think for me, at least, it allowed me to go into these conversations not timid and not nervous, but really be myself. And then again, you learn if you are yourself and you make a mistake, you learn from it. And if you're not yourself and you make a mistake, you always say, hey, that wasn't me. You know what I mean? You'll never actually learn.
I will say this. I mean, it still happens to me today, to this day. I'll give you an example. Philip called me and left me a voicemail, and I was my face went white. I was like, I let the phone go to voicemail when Philip Poole called me. And I just let it go completely to voicemail. I was like, it's probably like a telemarketer or something like that. I don't recognize this number, whatever. And then you left the voicemail and I was like, oh my God, I didn't pick up the phone. This is it. I blew my chance. I blew my chance. And then I called back and I'm like, hey, I'm in the car. We can talk right now. And then we just started talking. So, I think that I think is definitely, that mental block is something that I think a lot of people don't recognize, that that's in their head. It's not outside in the universe. Like, you're putting that on yourself. And Philip, do you think one of the main mistakes you see you goalkeeper coaches making when they're kind of beginning this journey is that, they're already thinking, what is this person going to say, rather than letting the conversation happen?
Yeah, I do think that's real. I mean, I think that it still happens to an extent, right? I mean, for me, I think about, what do you think about the session? What do my goalkeepers think about the session? What does the boss think about the session? It's there, right? It's across the board. And, just to touch on sort of Omar's last point there, but is these mentors, right? And to use Paul as an example, right? Paul's probably a mentor to so many of the people that I consider in my network, me included, is that, you get 100% honesty, right? So from a mentor, right? Like, you have that little bit, hey, was that a good session? Was it not? You need someone in that network that says, no, it was terrible. It was rubbish. That's not right. And again, I think for me, to come back to your point, Michael, is it was when you sort of put it out there. I said it before, I've got a small network of people I'll send my best and my worst to, knowingly, right? I used to send a lot of training film without audio, right? Just watch the film. And then I'm like, is that me being a bit insecure about what I'm saying? Because I believe in what I'm saying. Why am I leaving that out? So, things like that. But I think the honesty's got to be there. And I think that I don't care if you're a window salesperson, I don't care if you're a soccer coach, I don't care if you want to get better, you want honest, real feedback from people that want to help you. And I think, like Omar says, it's people want to help you way more than you think. People want to look out for you way more than you think. And it's just a case of sort of opening yourself up. And, I say to players all the time, do you want me to tell you what you want to hear, or the truth? And obviously they say the truth, but, it's the same we want from your mentor, right? You want to hear it. And sometimes you walk away with your tail between your legs because your session was rubbish or your feedback was pretty hard hitting, but that's part of it, And I think that, like Omar mentioned, that discomfort sometimes, it's a funny place to be, but I think with the right people that you trust, I think you can get better with that stuff.
I mean, I think you brought up a really good point that I didn't even thought about before, is in regards to, Saskia, like, do you see this a lot of times where people just try to like send like their best stuff? They don't want you to see their bad stuff, but in reality, you're going to grow more from, I don't want to say your bad stuff, but the stuff where you're having, like you were just saying, you're like, there's something I need help with and a tweak, and being open and honest and saying, I need help with this, rather than like, look how great I am. Here's everything I do that's amazing.
Well, I mean, if you put it into the context of like, I have to watch what I say. If you put it into the context of like kids sending in stuff, that's the best way to work around that. Don't just send me your best stuff. Like, don't, it's like, hey, look at this save, look at this save, look at this save. I'm not just looking at the save, I'm looking at your footwork, I'm looking at your positioning, I'm looking at a lot of things. So sometimes even if you send me something, maybe not, like maybe it's a goal against you, but maybe like I might be assessing why it was the goal and where your positioning was and what you were doing and maybe your communication and everything like that. And I'd like to see that stuff. Like, don't just, it's not all highlight reel. I get it, I get why, but at the same time, like sometimes I'm like, I'm not learning anything right now,
Yeah.
Mike,
So
can I add something to that?
Sure.
No, something very like, it's kind of on the same point, but like, I think when I did my first like real filming of, I think it was Todd Hofford's session at, it was, remember Mike, it was the off season or their preseason in Arizona. And I filmed his session. It was like one of the first times that I was like, okay, I'm going to film somebody else's session and post it and see what, you know, what people think about it. And for the longest time, I just wanted to post my sessions because this is my channel and that's it. And then I started shifting the perspective of, again, like if I'm helping the goalkeeping community and they say something about Todd's session, or I did one with Chris Sharp, they say something about their session that I didn't even see, that's allowing me to, again, grow myself and grow my perspective of like, oh, I didn't see that, to now I'm actually helping more people by, producing content that's not even me. And I think I remember someone reached out to me and said, hey, I just watched the Chris Sharp, the double episodes. And Omar, no offense, but in that 2 hours, I just learned more than I've ever learned from any of your videos ever on YouTube. And that kind of opened my mind to be like, well, that sucks that you said that. But two, okay, like, yes, I love that. I want to hear that. I want to know that like the content that is being put out there is helping you. And I think that's the beauty of the goalkeeping community as well, is that there are people like Chris Sharp who, and it's Todd Hofford as well, but I didn't have him mic'd up, but Chris Sharp, who allowed me to mic him up, come to his session and, was so nice about it. I went to the hotel afterwards. We sat down for like 2.5 hours. I mean, I don't have much of a budget, so I have like a GoPro that kept turning off, a camera that was supposed to be on him, it kept turning off. My brother who was operating it has no experience. And we're doing all this stuff for like 2 hours, and then it was done. And I said, hey, I really do apologize for all the technical difficulties. He's like, mate, don't worry about it. Like, I love goalkeeping. You seem like a nice guy. I'm going to talk to you. Don't even worry about it. Don't apologize. And again, that was just another eye-opening experience of like, damn, there are really good people in this goalkeeping world, and I need to give more people a chance versus thinking that, I know everything, or that I'm trying to prove something to everyone.
By the way, Omar, I want to commend Paul Rogers for leaving that comment on your channel right there.
No, Paul. Dude, actually, Paul is actually like a really nice dude. I don't know if for me, I was really surprised because I remember I did like an Instagram live with him, and he was just like I had my friends text me like, man, this guy's tough. He's not really giving you many answers, dude. And I was just like, yeah. Towards the middle and towards the end, he started opening up a little bit more, started feeling more comfortable. And then, talk to him on the phone every once in a while, like send him a message about a clip. And he is, super responsive, really nice guy. And again, you sometimes have to meet these people to understand that like there's more to them than their personality that you see on TV and all that stuff. So yeah, that's what I would say is get to know people. And then once you get to know them from the perspective of like, hey, how can not you help me, but give me advice to get better as a coach versus like, let me show you how good I am.
No, but you also tend to get in your own head, like in a training session and stuff, you're trying to reach a certain goal, you're looking for certain things, and you might miss something. Like,
Definitely.
well, me being so opinionated. So like you might be looking at one thing and why somebody is not getting an explosion to save a ball to their right, and you might be seeing it one way, and then somebody else can come in and say, actually, they're double setting, they're setting too wide, and that's why they're not getting explosion, and you're not seeing that, or or whatever. And sometimes you need somebody to come in and give you another perspective and allow yourself to see a different picture, because it's not always just the one way. And those might be the solutions that for some reason, like right now, what I'm dealing with, like, I'm trying to find a solution to this. And I'm like, that's why I'm going to just discuss it. So it's like, you have to humiliate yourself to do that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, just another funny story. I mean, I had exactly what Saskia is saying is that, sometimes you have to be okay with asking other people for advice. And there was a point where I had a young goalkeeper and she just kept on standing super, super narrow. And I was just like, oh man, I've always worked with kids who jump wide, but not standing super narrow. And she's getting taller. So you could tell that like, she just is not as flexible. So I was thinking, okay, how can I fix this? I tried a few things. It didn't work. So I texted Tim Dittmer on WhatsApp, and I said, Tim, here's a little video of this young girl. If you have any time, I would love for you to give me some feedback and maybe just offer some advice of how I can potentially help her. And he was like, you got to do this, 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 and this. And I was like, oh my God. One, that was a fast response. And two, I've never thought about doing that. And then again, he was like, I was very, thankful. And I said, thank you so much for your time. He's like, don't even worry about it. Like, if you want to talk goalkeeping, my phone is always on. And I don't know if that's for everybody. So Mike, don't go texting Tim Dittmer, but I'm just saying.
Don't get my number out. I don't need Omar calling me all the time.
I was just going to say,
but that was, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, Omar, the reason you got such a fast response is for those people who are out there who are not familiar, Tim Dittmer is actually not human. He's literally just a goalkeeping computer. He's a CGI hologram projection of a person, but he's actually just a goalkeeping encyclopedia behind that. No, honestly, I speak the world of Tim, and he knows so much about goalkeeper coaching. Philip, we have a question in the group right here, and this comes from Zach Downs, who's a goalkeeper coach down in whatchamacallit.
Good one.
Texas.
Virginia?
No, Texas. He says the hardest thing for me is getting seen as a coach, like getting to the next level. I get it's about networking and knowing the right people, but they're never coaching tryouts like players get. LOL. I've always been curious about this topic as a coach trying to grow. Thoughts?
Yeah, I do actually. I think that there's some good fortune involved, right, in everything. So you look at it from a player standpoint, right? You know, a manager can love this goalkeeper, and because of that, she gets a career, goes to a World Cup, whatever it may be, and a manager may not like this goalkeeper. Because of that, he gets released from his contract. You switch the manager and they have different career trajectories, right? So a lot of the times there's a lot of good fortune and luck involved. And I think that we're in a profession where we know we're not going to become millionaires doing it. We're not going to be, nor do we want to be most of the time on camera or any sort of focal point of anything. It's because we love what we do. So for me is the first part is that, you know, you do your thing regardless of where and what level and all that good stuff. And then, you know, it's the sort of advice you give to young players. You never know who's on a sideline. You never know who's watching. You never know who's sick today, who you've got to fill in for. You never know whose wife or partner's having a baby and they need some help from some random person somewhere. But all that comes on the back of that conscious or unconscious networking, that putting yourself out there, that being humble, that doing the extra stuff. So for me, I would say exactly that. Don't underestimate it in terms of that network. It pays off in different ways. And you never know who needs something at the drop of a hat. And for me, I'll just a little background and context. And this is the conversation you and I had, Michael, is like, I remember the days of working with the pros in the morning, running up, doing a college session, running back, doing 4 club sessions, a couple of individuals sprinkled in there. Then at the weekend, I've got ODP or the state team. And then I'm going to drive 4 hours to go and help this person because I respect it. So that sort of as well, I look at maybe, and I'm not that old, but I look at maybe the newer generation, and this is kind of who I'd like to help and mentor and guide some, is that, you know, you've got to put your time in, you've got to put your work in, you've got to value that network, and at some point it pays off. And for me, there's been a couple of little junctures that I look back and go, it was the right place at the right time. Now, obviously, I have to have the knowledge and the personality and the skill set to kind of make that work. But again, I use that example of a player. 2 different head coaches can mean 2 different careers, and being at the right place and taking the right opportunity all comes off the back of working your tail off and making sure that network is valued. And just one point I've been listening to you guys talk is, you know, a network is 2 ways. Right? Yeah. Like sometimes you think of it as, you know, let me reach out to this person and let me get what they've got. But I think sometimes that network's a little bit closer to home. So does it make sense for someone starting out to hit up Saskia and say, hey, Saskia, I want to come to everything you do? You know, no, sometimes you got to start a bit smaller, right? That community around you, and let that grow. And then obviously from that little community that you grow, not only that you take advice from, but you serve it too, in terms of give back and help and do whatever you can for it. And then all of a sudden someone knows someone, and it just grows and compounds over time. So yeah, I think for Zach, I think that, you know, I know who he is, I know what he does. I think so from that standpoint, his network is pretty solid. I think he just needs to identify and pinpoint where he wants to go, and that opportunity will hit us when the stars align, I guess, you know?
Yeah. Well,
I will say this on Zach's question as well. I mean, I just stepped down for a director of goalkeeping at LA Bulls. And part of that is because I worked my tail off and I was juggling Philip said, now with UCLA, with everything, and I had to say, okay, I need to kind of consolidate and refocus and everything. But I'm proud to, first of all, I'll always be an LA Bull, and I'm proud to see that they're actually trying coaches out. So that's to answer your question. They didn't just hand the next goalkeeper coach that walked in a job. They're going through the next month of bringing in different coaches, letting them train the kids, watching them and everything. So I think that seeing that makes me happy. And, I know how serious they are about the quality of their coaches. So yes, there are some goalkeeper coaching tryouts. So it is a good thing.
There's always a goalkeeping tryout, right? So I look at myself, right? And this would have been for the last 6 or 7 years. I've been fortunate that I had 4 of my youth players break into youth national teams, right? And I would always tell families, listen, I'm not going to put your name in because I feel like I could use some influence to kind of guide it and push it. I've had some experience, so you're on your own. I'll coach you and do whatever I can.
Right.
So you look at that, and you look at, again, people that have been in Zach's position, or I'll throw a name out there, Ian Joyce, right? So obviously, Ian had a great playing career and non-quantity, but if you look at the goalkeepers that Ian helped or played a role in producing at PDA, you talk about there's a pattern there. A few years ago, there was a pattern coming out of Atlanta for youth national teams. And so if you've got the ability to influence, you dig a little deeper and you say, well, why are those goalkeepers coming out of Atlanta? Well, it's, right. I think, these couple of people. You look at, pockets of like that, and I think the word spreads, right? So you look at these networks and you say, again, I just keep coming back to it, it's like, hey, who's that person's coach? Or I'll be honest with you, you look at, whether it be DA, ECNL, whatever the league is, you see kids playing, you see clubs that have got good goalkeepers over and over, whether you're a rival coach, whether you're a college coach, and it just kind of happens that way. So I'll tell you, I've said, hey, you guys need to look at this person because she is continually producing goalkeepers. Or, hey, what this guy's doing. And I do think there's somewhat of an ongoing tryout. And not everyone is in a big metropolitan area where you have a huge plethora of goalkeepers. But I think over time, if you do your job right and you're really into it and you give everything you've got to the goalkeepers, you produce a certain quality over and over again. And I think that maybe is the closest thing, like Saskia says, to a tryout, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Totally agree. 100.
I want to share a little story right here because I think it might resonate with the audience right here in regards to that, Philip and Saskia and Omar. And that is when I got my first big break was to be the goalkeeping director at Real SoCal. That was the biggest club in Cal South at the time. They had just won, 3 national championships in a row on the boys' side. They were doing phenomenal on the women's side as well too. And I had basically gotten the tryout for the club because they had released their goalkeeper coach because of players that were at the club who were working with me privately. And the parents contacted the board and said, you need to see this guy over on the other side of the hill. He's working with blah, blah, blah at our club and blah, blah, blah at our club and blah, blah, blah at our club. He should be over here. And I didn't know this. So I found out from one of the parents. They said, hey, would you be interested in going to Real SoCal? I said, yeah, absolutely. Are you kidding me? That'd be insane. He's like, okay, we'll contact AB because I think they're interested in looking at a goalkeeper coach. So I contact AB and who's Alberto Bru, who I've got a really fun little picture that I'll share. And basically, he says to me, he's like, all right, come out to the field and run the session. I had never been through a tryout as a goalkeeper coach before. I'd never coached at that level of a club before. And the first kids that he gave me, youth national team players. And I felt so out of my element because I'd only worked with bronze and silver elite and that type of stuff. And if you guys know the old Coast Soccer back then, those were lower tier players. And I had to take a second and go away and just go, you know what? I'm just going to run my session. I'm not going to think about their level. I'm going to run my session. As Todd Hofford says, if you run a good session, it doesn't matter what the level is. Your expectations change. That's it. So they're higher level keepers, so your expectations will be higher. I ran the session. Who knows how great a session it was. And I never heard anything back for a month. I kept calling AB, no response. And I'm like, well, that didn't happen. And I really thought, I was like, my gosh, I'm not at that level. I'm just not at that level. About a month goes in, one of the parents goes, hey, so it looks like they're going to hire you at Real SoCal. I just heard them talking and said, yeah, I think we're going to take that guy on. And the reason is because they'd been looking at other goalkeeper coaches that other month.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that. So I want Zach, so you to hear that, is that, you know, just because you don't hear anything back, or you might, you know, it might have nothing to do with that. It might have to the fact that they are looking at other people. So I believe there are tryouts. So I just kind of wanted to share that story, because I developed a mentorship with AB after that, and it really leads to this conversation. Omar, I feel like we've established a mentorship. You know, I've leaned on Saskia, you know, because of her extensive background. Philip, I think the world of what you do. So, you know, I would love to have a mentorship with you as well too. Why is being a mentor so important in your network, to not just learn from others, but have others learn from you?
I don't know. I don't quite see it as a mentor. Maybe that's due to, you know, I feel like I close my eyes and think about what a mentor is, and it's an old wise person sitting on the chair. And, you know, like for me, I just look at that networking as being two ways, right? Like, you know, to use what Omar said about Tim, right? My phone's on, my email address isn't that hard to find. And it's like, look, at the end of the day, is that you've got to be willing to give a little bit. You've got to be willing to give back. You've got to be willing to share and be transparent in areas you can. So I don't look at it as I want to be someone's mentor. I think that doesn't suit me, right? It's just not who I am. But I think that if the communication's open and I'm willing to, I'll help where I can. Or sometimes I might just tell you, hey, thanks for the video, but I don't know. What do you think? Like, it looks all right to me. Or I hear what you're saying, but I don't see it. So yeah, I think it's important. So rather than to change that question a little bit, I just think it's two ways. I think that you've got to be willing to not just take. You've got to be willing to give. You've got to be willing to put yourself out a little bit for when people do need that. So and people have to feel comfortable that you're not just saying the right things, right? I mean, that's the other thing. You know, you meet a lot of people that say, hey, call me, do whatever you want to do, but it's a little bit, you don't really feel it's genuine, right?
Yeah.
And I think that there's a few people out there that really surprise you.
Yeah, like I said with Juan, I mean, I don't look at it like when he was just like, I'd love to, you know, watch your sessions. I'm like, I don't look at it as a mentor. It's a give and take. I want to go to his men's sessions and watch what he's doing, and like I want him to give his feedback. Maybe he's the one that can figure out my issue. Like I don't know, you know, but it's fine. Like I agree with you. I don't look at it as a mentorship, but like just a camaraderie and just, you know, helping each other across the board.
Omar, I know you get bombarded constantly with people, you know, reaching out to you, and I think you can sometimes filter out, you know, when people have the right intentions, right?
Yeah, and I think you know, to both Phil and Saskia's point, I think for me at least, the quarantine was a huge indicator of just the goalkeeping community as a whole. And I felt like there were times where I had reached out to certain coaches or certain players to, you know, come on the podcast, and they had always said no, and they were just like, no, it's not really for me, I'm sorry. And then when the quarantine happened, I think they started seeing their peers and other goalkeeper coaches share their knowledge and their wisdom, and, you know, be comfortable with, you know, getting an Instagram live and having a conversation and getting those questions on the spot. So sometimes you just need a little extra push. And I think that's where, for me too, is that I see people like Saskia, like I said earlier, and sometimes she'll admit that she doesn't know something. So for me, I can almost blame that situation of like, well, if Saskia can admit that she doesn't know something, then who am I to say that I know everything? And sometimes I think we need to like not blame something, but like give cause and a reason for us to do something that we're out of our comfort zone. And I feel like the quarantine was a huge one for me, at least, seeing my peers and other people on Instagram lives and doing podcasts and answering questions and doing their, you know, creating their own forums, creating their own Zoom exercises in classrooms, to give me that extra push to be like, yeah, like, I just saw, you know, Tim Dittmer do an Instagram live with the FA, and Instagram live, a YouTube video for the FA, and he's telling people about, you know, X, Y, and Z. Well, why can't I just do that? Like, I know I'm not in the same position, but like, at least I can share my ideas and my thought processes. The worst that could happen is someone says, hey, I don't agree with that. Let me tell you why. And they give me something that I never thought of, and I actually get better. Or somebody says, hey, you did a great job, I love it. You know what I mean? There's just, sometimes you just need that little extra push. And I felt like the quarantine time was a really good opportunity for all of us to kind of learn from one another.
I want to bring this up with you, Philip, because just one thing that, really, I don't want to say it blew me away because, obviously, this is the reason that you are the person that you are, is when we were having a conversation and you said, hey, you know what, I don't want to come on and just give, my session plan or whatever. I want to come on. I want to hear about you guys, and I want to hear about how you guys, made your careers happen and all that sort of stuff. And then I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is somebody who's legitimately not just looking to promote themselves. And I'm not saying that everybody comes on the podcast is looking to promote themselves, but somebody who's also legitimately wants to use every facet that they can to learn from others. Which is, I really think that what a goalkeeping network is really all about. A goalkeeping community should be really about learning from others. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that I've made in the past as a younger coach is I would pick and choose who I would learn from. And I don't know if that makes any sense, Philip, but like, I'd be like, oh, that person, I'm at a higher level, so I don't need to look at their stuff. When in reality, I probably could have learned something from them,
Yeah, I think you look at like that whole kind of sphere of mistakes that people might make or come across, or some areas where, if there's young coaches or players that are thinking about when they're done playing that I'll get in a coach, some mistakes that people make. I mean, I think that's one area that we're all kind of pretty well versed in, right? Like, there's I can't learn from that person, and maybe you can't learn from that person, right? Maybe you are at a different level of that person, but you know what? That person's good friends with Saskia Weber, and she knows more. And that person, and again, just the humility of saying, hey, part of the little goalkeepers union, we're all in this together. And saw your kid play, she was good, or hey, I noticed this kid's improved. That was well done. So just the humility and that side of even just being a good person around it. You don't necessarily pick something up from everyone. I think one of the things that I see is, and I touched on it before, is either reaching for the door that's too high right now in terms of kind of knock on that door and go through it, because I haven't climbed the steps yet and haven't either done the networking or pushed through these levels. I think that's important. And then I think the overconfidence piece, like we all were and we all learn from, as younger coaches, younger players, younger people. And then, there's the other side of it where you're not seeking anything because you've got all the answers and you're on your own island, and you might be doing a decent job, but the game moves on without you, or you've been privileged to be at a huge, whether it be a club, and you've been getting kids from a big city for years, and you've never got out of your own way, and all of a sudden there's a drop off and you don't know why. So I think some of those mistakes that people make, whether it be the overconfidence, whether it be I can't learn from this person, whether it's closing a door on that person, or sometimes, again, does it make sense for someone just starting out to go and knock on Aaron Hyde's door and say, hey, I'm a men's goalkeeper coach, can you help me? Hey, listen, maybe knock on some doors first to help you get on the ladder. So some of those things I think people make some mistakes at. I'll have some of people I would consider mentors say, hey, that's rubbish. Knock on that door till they open. Kick that door down and walk through it, and don't give a crap what anyone says. And there's two schools of thought for me. I think I'm a little bit more towards the first, where I'm gonna knock on these doors that I can touch and reach right now, and those doors lead to someone else and something else. And just a quick story, right? So I was actually just thinking while you guys were talking. So for me, I think a couple of things that popped along, right, were just in my local market. I was like, listen, if there's a goalkeeping session, if there's a college, if unfortunately we've had a pro team for a long time in Charlotte that not a lot of people know about. If there's something that I can go and do, whether it be the old W League with the women, the USL with the men, I'll go and do it, and I'll go and try it. At least I'll knock on that door. I can touch it. I can see it. And it's really those little breaks that sort of got me different opportunities and around different people. I think some of those are big mistakes that people make, and that maybe just this conversation can save one person from that.
Yeah. No, I mean, when I first started back into coaching and stuff like that, I reached out to Paul Blodgett for some advice and some tutelage and everything. I reached out to Bill Steffen and people that were in my wheelhouse, from my mentors to co-coaches and stuff, and just to get my bearings and everything. And I do start start small, start, and then you can start expanding. But
It's almost a different pathway, right, Saskia? So
what?
you look at someone like yourself who, you know, to use an analogy, maybe there's certain people that have to take the stairs, whereas someone with your playing background and prestige can take an elevator up there. You know, but you still have to move up at levels. You still can't go from bottom to top. But I think again, it's just smart networking on your point is that, you know, your network initially out of the gate is pretty decent to start with, and you can press the elevator button, and some people have to run up the stairs. But ultimately, for someone that keeps running upstairs and will keep running upstairs, that, you know, it's the same journey. Some people are, you know, to Zach's point, sometimes some people are a little bit fortuitous that they get a yes or an opportunity at different times, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you know, and speaking of relationships, the legend Peter Meller is watching this right now. So I mean, when we're talking about, you know, how important relationships are in regards to your goalkeeping network, I mean, you know, it speaks for itself right there. I mean, you know, I mean, this is when people of that ilk are listening to us speak, you know, and trying to gain some knowledge from it. You know, it just showcases how valuable just having conversations within the goalkeeping community, regardless of whatever level somebody might be at, you just how much you can grow from that. And, you know, Philip, you were
or
bringing
maybe
up
he's just thinking we're all full of shit. It's fine.
Yeah.
and laughing at us.
Or maybe it's raining in Florida right now, and he needs something to do. You know, maybe he was hoping Omar was going to get some more pictures up on his virtual background. I want to discuss that now. I want to move over to you, Omar, because you're very big on this, and that's social media. You know, I think you've done that before. I think you've done it, dabbled over once or twice on it. What are some of the things that you should not share on social media when you're trying to develop your goalkeeping network?
I mean, I can only share from my own experiences, and I think just after a while, you get to a point where I tried a lot of stuff out, and I started realizing that like the flashy stuff, or you know, certain drills that I can slow mo and show my goalkeeper tipping the ball over the net would, you know, the algorithm favors that. So for a little bit, I kind of started falling into that trap. If I'm going to keep posting that, I'm going to keep posting that so I can get my likes up, my views up, and obviously grow the channel. And, you know, to the young kids, they don't know any different. They're watching it like kind of how I watched it as a kid and going, wow, this is amazing. This is great to watch. But then you get to a point where you kind of outgrow that viewership. Then you start realizing, okay, do I want to be seen as like an influencer or as like an actual like coach who provides good, you know, value and educational stuff? And I started realizing that I wanted to be actually like respected by, you know, coaches who weren't young kids anymore, or who grew up, or even, you know, goalkeepers who are at the next level that are taking trips to Los Angeles for vacation and would want to train with me. So I had my friend call me out, and he said, look, you know, some of this content you've been posting is BS. And like, I don't know who you're trying to fool, but this is not going to get you somebody to come train with you. I'll just be honest with you. And I had to take a long look in the mirror and realize, yeah, that's very accurate. So I need to start switching up my content to, I don't care if it gets less views, but as long as it's educational and it's helpful, that's all I care about. And it's been an ever evolving process for like about 2.5 years since I kind of make that conscious decision. But that's what I would tell people is like, yes, you're going to find ways to almost like not beat the algorithm, but be in favor of the algorithm on YouTube and Instagram. But there's a reason why there are people who are, you know, really activating the algorithm who aren't respected in the goalkeeping industry. And I think we all know who they are, but you have to ask yourself that question. Do I want to be respected as an educator, or do I want to be, you know, respected by the young kids who don't know any better?
Yeah. You know, Philip, you know, obviously this is something that, you know, obviously we, you know, we're very familiar with. And I know that one of the things that happens with someone of your stature is that people reach out to you all the time. And, you know, one of the things that was very, you know, very honoring to, you know, to someone like myself is when you say, oh, you guys are doing it right. You guys are providing value, those sorts of the things. Is that something that you think that a lot more people need to recognize, is that if they want to catch your attention, you know, maybe for a job down the line or a referral or whatever, you know, how they present themselves to the public is really going to determine how you perceive them, whether you want to refer them.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm of any sort of importance to influence anyone's career or anything like that. But I just think, look, I'll take you guys for example, right? So Omar's been around on social media for a while, and if you're conscientious about what you do, you follow certain people, whether you like them or not, or whether you agree or not, and you know, you sort of whether it's true or not. I have an impression of Omar, who he is, what he's about, having never spoken to him, right? Just from that. So, you know, you never know when that's going to, hey, do you know that guy out in LA? What's his name? I'm like, yeah, you know, so some of those conversations happen. And again, it's just unconscious networking that, you know, I could be networking for Omar because I like what he does, having never spoken to him a day in my life. So I don't know about algorithms. I don't know about this and that, but what I do know is what I read and what I see, and do I like it? Do I not like it? And I think some of the things that stand out for me is like the me guy, the me guy, like that. For me, it's like Omar says, look, you're here to promote yourself, which is fine. I've got no issue with that. If that's your goal, do it, have at it. But if you're here to make goalkeepers and goalkeeping better, then, you know, stick to that. And then, you know, there's the other guy that's the arguer, you know, like the sky's blue, the sky's green, you know, get your feet set, do this. German's better than American's better than, it's like the arguer is like, look, just go and argue somewhere else, you know, like, so I noticed some of those things. And then we touched on it earlier, is you've got to think about it, right? You've got to be really smart. You've got to be really deliberate. That, you know, for me, the football world's too small, right? The goalkeeping world is exponentially smaller than the football world. And, you know, you talk about people like Peter Mellor, who, you know, everyone in this country holds in high regard. You know, we brought up Paul Rogers' name. You talk about Phil Wedden, you know, Amy Griffin, you know.
Oscar Weber. No, I'm kidding.
You know,
I'm so kidding.
Speaking about all about yourself.
I'm so kidding.
But just these people and how they influence and connect, and how just certain, you know, we'll talk about, do you see that guy on social media? You see that idiot? What's he doing? Or this guy's really good. Take a look at what he puts out. And, you know, it's just discussion around a small world in goalkeeping and a small world in football. So you got to be really thoughtful when you're going to get on there and smash into someone. Or you've got to be really thoughtful when you get in there and put something ridiculous out. And if you are going to do that, I said earlier, I'm not going to contradict myself. I'm not the Bible of goalkeeping. I'm far from it. But just, you know, have a reason, back it up, and stand behind it. You know, that's part of it. So there's a lot of good people out there that put some good stuff out, some questionable stuff, but there's also a network of people that talk about that stuff.
I love that you said Amy, by the way. I love that.
Great person.
Absolutely.
Speaking of you know, what you put out there, one of the things I want to talk to you about, Philip, you know, and then obviously everybody else can chime in too, is a big question that gets asked all the time is how important conventions are, how important conventions, licenses, all that sort of thing. I will say this: I have gone to conventions and licenses, and based on how people have presented themselves on social media, I've had a certain point of view of them already before even having a conversation with them, positive and negative. And that is something that you need to take into consideration, that you will come in, if you want to work with these people, you will come in contact with them at some point. How important is it how you present yourself at convention or license courses, Philip?
I'm laughing because Michael knows I have PTSD from conventions.
Yeah, she's got PTSD from conventions.
From having to demo on like cement floors of the rug down back in the day.
I'll leave that to you.
I'm like, oh.
You know what? I think they're brilliant, right? So I go licensing first, right? Is at the end of the day, it depends which school of thought you're in, or which school you're from. It doesn't make you a coach, but it legitimizes your journey. It tells people you're serious about what you do. I don't know there's been any better networking vehicle for me outside of some of those licensing and coaching courses. You know, you brought up Anson when we first jumped on the phone, right? I remember doing a license, right? It was an old NSCAA one, and the instructors were Anson Dorrance, Randy Waldrum, Tony DeChico, Barry Gorman. And by the way, at the time, I didn't even know who they were, no idea. And then you look back and you go, these people were the people that were steering a lot of the game, and a lot of these people that, you know, some of their work probably won't be remembered and probably won't be as appreciated as it should be. But so you look at some of those interactions, you take one little snippet away and one little piece from each of them, and it's brilliant. So for me, the licensing, I know a coach, and I won't say his name because it's pretty controversial. I know a coach that's got 0 and will get 0 licensing, anti-license. He may be the best coach I've worked with. And in
Nice.
terms of that, in terms of his ability to teach and convey his ideas and to get people to buy into it, and I'm talking ridiculously successful, he's probably the best I've worked with in terms of that. So there's people that are completely anti-license, which are just, it's fine, that's your this. For me, it shows that you're serious about your craft. It shows you want to learn, and it shows that, hey, you know what, this is something that's important to me based on what the soccer community tells me. So the licensing, I think, is vital. Convention, I mean, it's like adult summer camp. You know, there's so much going on. I can't concentrate. I get over. So for me, I think I look at the convention as I've got a lot of respect for those guys that present and do a really good job year in, year out. I think some of those are becoming just staples of what I go and see. Some really, really good people. And I think the less canned some of these are, the more open and transparent some of these presentations are. It's great. And then when you look at them both together, Michael, like licensing, convention, they've kind of changed a little bit in the last 10 years, whereby it's a lot more collaborative. There's a lot more discussion based around these. There's a lot more, you know, practical type. It's changed from, and I didn't mind it back in the day. It's changed from, this is how it's done. You do it like this because I did it like this, as opposed to, here's some ideas. What do you think? I've tried this. It didn't work, so I tweaked it to this. And even the licensing has started to get an element of that, which has been great. And it's been a nice change. So I think they're both huge. I think, you know, sticking on the topic of networking, they're probably the best two opportunities and the best, you know, the place to meet some people that are like you and can help you.
I need a license to do this? Uh-oh.
You don't, according to that guy, Philip knows he's anti-license. He gets 0. I will say, outside of just the actual education that you're getting in the licenses, for me personally, as somebody who did not have a World Cup, you know, championship or anything like that, I started at the bottom rung and worked myself way up, and I learned just as much from my peers at the licenses as I did from the instructors. And Philip, I think you know what I'm talking about here in regards to those late nights where you're up just drawing sessions, you know, with everybody else who's taken the course with you, and you're comparing notes, contrasting, all of this stuff. Or so and so has done this, and I'd never done that before, you know, or they're very versed, you know, on this side of the game, and I'm not as versed on that side of the game, you know. So I think at those licenses, you know, look at trying to learn from everybody who's at the course as much as possible, as well too. Saskia, I want to ask you this, because Omar, this is something that I know you had an issue with at the beginning, and that is a professional playing background. You know, I know you said that was a chip on your shoulder for the longest time, that you felt that was something that in your mind was a mental block that you had. Saskia, you obviously came into it from a different standpoint of playing at the highest level. How important or unimportant do you think a playing background is when it comes to coaching?
Go ahead.
That's a hard question.
Okay.
Because just because you've played, and just because you've played professional or you've played at the highest level, doesn't make you a good coach. I'm sorry. It's not a given. So I think that, do I think it helps? Yes, I think it helps in a lot of areas of understanding what it takes to get to that level. I think it helps in bringing that out of your players. But technically and tactically, I'll give an analogy. You don't have to play NFL football to be a good tactician and understand the sport. You know, and I think that it's helped me I think it's helped me. All my travels, playing pro in Japan, playing for the US and everything, like, yes, it's helped me. Do I think that if you've never touched a soccer ball, that you know, I think you'll have limitations in certain aspects of coaching if you haven't. Do I think you have to be a professional player to be the best coach? No, I don't. But I think some on-field knowledge, you know, and I don't mean like high school, I think like helps. So that's a broad question to me. I can just go.
No, and I apologize to put you on the spot right there, but
no, it's fine. I think it's helped me, absolutely. But for those reasons, not necessarily, I think, like I told you, going and playing in Japan gave me a different perspective of soccer. Like, it gave me a different perspective of coaching and understanding it from a different point of view. My dogs are going crazy. Playing for the US team, playing under Anson, playing under Tony, like those experiences, playing against Norway, playing against China, playing against all these teams absolutely helped me. But they helped me in a different aspect of, oh my God, I think one of my dogs just got killed. They helped me in a different aspect of things. And I think that's helped me be the best coach I can be. But I don't think you have to play at that elite level to be an elite coach.
Yeah. Yeah. You know,
Does that answer your question?
No, I mean, absolutely it does. And again, the reason, you know, I want to do is because, like, there's a lot of young coaches on this call right now. And to hear it from somebody like yourself, I think it has more gravitas than, you know, for me to say it. So thank you for doing that. I know it's not the easiest question because it's very personal in regards to from each person. Omar, before I wrap it up with Phil right here, is there anything you want to add to that as somebody that did not, and by the way, for Omar had the ability to play professionally.
But that doesn't make Omar any less of a coach. Like, Omar's a great coach, and he's a great tactician, and he understands the sport. And just because he didn't play in the EPL or something, you know, you can have somebody that played their entire career there and sucks as a coach. No. And doesn't understand how to translate how they played into how to coach. So, you know, I just gave you a huge, like, you know, I love you, Omar.
No, I appreciate it. No, I think, yeah, I mean, you know, from early on, I think that was something that I you know, I was like, you know what, I want to get this job. And I think it came from the idea that me personally, I'm the kind of person who is not a very patient guy. And sometimes I felt like at a young age and coaching wise as well, that the world owed me something. You know, I was like, I need to get this job by this age. I need to have this job by that age to be respected. And I think that was probably where my insecurities came from, is that I was never a patient person and never wanted to go through the process and actually, you know, work for stuff. You know, I think even growing up, my diet was never good. I never actually had a gym routine. So I was never the fittest goalkeeper. I was never the strongest goalkeeper. So my body would break down, you know, 80% of the way through the season. And the last 20% would be like playoff time or, you know, conference tournament time. And I would, you know, my play would suffer. So early on, that's how I was. And then, you know, the world will teach you quickly that you got to, there's a process to everything, and you got to really go through the process, go to these coaching licenses, meet new people at the convention. And then from there, once you create your network and you have the ability to, you know, call on these people like Phil and like, hey, Phil, I had this session, not sure what you think of it. Let me know what you think of the coaching points. They watch it, they give you feedback, and now you're getting better and better. But I don't think Phil's gonna be like, hey, you didn't play professionally, so there's no reason I'm not gonna watch this. You know what I mean? So I think as long as you're trusting the process and going through the process, over time, you're going to start to realize that you're going to be respected. If you know what you're doing, you will start to be respected by your peers, and you will start to be respected by the kids that you train. And then, like Mike said, with Real SoCal, they got him the job, essentially. They vouched for him when, you know, they needed that little extra push. And, you know, getting that trust from the kids that you train is extremely important. And from there, that'll eventually propel you to where you want to go.
Yeah, and look at what Phil said. Like, the proof is in, like, what you're putting out. Like, if you're, you know, at a club or something, and people will start taking notice, man, that club keeps producing great goalkeepers. Like, who's there? You know, what's going on? So
for sure.
Yeah. No. Philip, to wrap it up with you kind of as we go, and thank you for taking over an hour. I mean, I know you're extremely busy right now, obviously, you know, with the new full-time position. I can't imagine that's a short amount of work on your plate. I'm sure you got quite a bit going on. I want to ask you if there's any specific advice you would give to a young coach that's beginning, that did not have the playing career of like a Saskia, you know, who gets that elevator. You know, but still has to prove herself, but gets that elevator. So has to take the stairs.
I think there's a couple of things, right? So I think that you can always flip a situation to look at it the glass half full, or how can you get the advantage, right? So I take myself, I'm probably in the middle ground, where I grew up in a professional system, had a very short career, but ultimately took me a couple of years. Then after that, probably wasn't really good enough to make a career out of it. Could have bounced around, but I don't think I would have made any great waves in the game as a player. So I look at myself as someone that has a grounding in the game. I think for a goalkeeper coach, you have to have a fundamental understanding of the position. I don't think you can just decide one day, hey, I haven't got a playing background, but I'm going to completely become a goalkeeper. But I think there has to be some familiarity with the position, right? But I look at how can I get the advantage out of it, right? So I'll try not to be long-winded. I look at myself as someone that has probably on an average week through my 20s, probably put in 70 to 80 hours a week. With a large chunk of that being on a soccer field. So, you know, it's something I'm very proud of, right? You know, people sometimes, there's a lot of coaches with accents, no matter where they're from, that give folks a bad name. And I'm very proud to say, hey, I learned to play football in England, no doubt, but I learned to coach here. I'm an American coach, and I put my time in on the fields of this country, right? So I look at it and say, for someone that comes out of a 10-year playing career, I've got a massive advantage in terms of just me being on a field, me putting the hours in, me discovering that does not work. Me looking back 5 years ago, cringing at some of the stuff I was doing, or, you know, just that sheer volume of work, sheer hours put in on the field, give me a slight advantage, right? The other part is, you know, I've got people in my network that, you know, again, I'm not because he's listening, right? You look at someone like Peter Mellor. Peter Mellor's got no business even knowing who I am, but when you know a little bit about what Peter Mellor's done in his career, what he's played at, for you to pick those pieces and not be worried about saying, hey, Pete, you know, the pressure before that game, tell me about it. We're going into a big game and she's feeling some pressure. That's something I can't necessarily help with, but to stay in the networking aspect of this, I've got people that can say, hey, it's not her job to win the game, it's her job, you know, whatever it may be. So I think I look at it as not playing to say, you better love what you do, because it's like Warren Buffett says, if you don't get rich quickly, you get rich slowly, and you become a good coach slowly. And that's where the advantage over a playing career, not playing career, you know, that you can get a jump start from a playing career, but it takes some time to learn your craft. You have to decide what works and what doesn't. And that's it. I think no one jumps into this because they see a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. You do this because you're passionate about it. You do this because there's something about a kid making a save, or a goalkeeper contributing to winning a game, or seeing someone over 3, 4, 12 months just go from A to B. And I think that's why you're in it. And to pull Zach back into it, listen, networks work in funny ways at funny times, and things pop up, and that's what I would say is put your time in. Don't worry about your playing background. Make sure you can stand behind your work. Make sure you learn your craft. And then, you know, when someone comes out with a 10-year playing career, and I got 10,000 hours on the fields of whatever state I live in, with rec players, pro players, college players, freaking you name it, that gives me some kind of advantage. It may not give me the prestige, it may not give me the credibility right away, but it does give me something. It does give me a basis to work from. So that's the advice I would give young people starting out, is get those licenses, put your time in, build your network, and don't be afraid to raise your hand and ask someone, hey, what do you think of this? Or can I come and watch that? Or hey, my name's this. I just wanted to say hello, because again, I still do that all the time.
For sure.
I think that's a perfect way to wrap up this episode. I mean, I can't think of a better way to do it. By the way, shout out to Jake Davis, University of Virginia, who just said, well said, Poole. So, or is it Pooley, or does it go Pooley?
Pooley, but either way.
Well, yeah, we love Jake, man. Jake, speaking to somebody who puts out great sessions, shout out to Jake Davis. Great sessions that you're putting out on social media. Almost as good as Omar. And if Saskia had social media that she figured out how to put the sessions up there, they'd be just as good. Your Twitter's blowing up though.
I know my Twitter's blowing up. I'm excited about it. Now you're making me like video and put it on social media. It'll happen. Don't you worry. I live in LA. It'll happen.
Before we go, Philip, first off, again, thank you for taking the time. If there's anybody out there, you know, who maybe wants to, you know, reach out to you, maybe they want to show some sessions or whatever. Again, the fact that you're so accessible, you know, at the position that you're at is pretty remarkable in regards to the goalkeeping community as a resource. Where's the best place for people to reach out to you?
So I'm definitely not a social media expert, but I do have a Twitter out there. You know, not that hard to track down information and all that good stuff. So I'd start there. And again, I don't want to give anyone bad advice because I can just about turn my phone on and send an email. So it's I don't want to give you bad advice.
And obviously, guys, you can reach out to Omar Zini at ProGK Academy _ Omar. Before we go, do you just want to give a quick shout out to the EPL program that you just launched?
Yeah. I'm doing the free trial right now, and I just did my game of the week analysis for Fulham versus Leeds United, Melier versus Alphonse Areola. Just did a lot of different themes and kind of stuff that I noticed throughout the game. So, yeah, go to my website and you can find the information there. And yeah.
Awesome. And obviously, guys, you can start ramping up those followers for Saskia Weber at Saskia _ Weber on all social media platforms. You can reach out to us at Goalkeeper Podcast on all social medias. Shout out if you have a guest suggestion or a topic suggestion to contact at Inside the 18. That's the number 18media.com. And if you want to check me out at stand-up comedy, Comedy in English tomorrow night, 8:30 on Zoom. Go to @Comedy in English on Facebook to find out all the info. That is all the time on Inside the 18, and we are out. Later, guys.